Hey guys, it's Joe again. I'm so sorry about the mix-up. We were having technical difficulties, but we are going to continue with the show. So basically what I wanted to say was that this is going to be the first episode of this series I plan on doing, which is called Real Talk with Joe. And this is going to be a channel where we're going to have talking about important social issues through books and film. But what is so important about it is I want to incorporate YouTubers of all kinds to sit down and to have kind of this roundtable discussion. So with that being said, I want to pass this on to two of my most oldest friends on YouTube. They're people that are incredibly important to me. I love them for their candidness and their uniqueness with their channels. They're incredible, and I guarantee you guys will fall in love with them just as I have. So without further ado, we're going to pass it on to Steve from the Lawn Gnome and Maddie from MaddyLeeReads. Hi guys, welcome.
Hello.
All right, so who wants to start off first with the intros? Tell the people what your channel is about.
Ladies first, please.
I'm Maddie from MaddyLeeReads. I'm mostly a booktube channel, but I want to branch out more and do like maybe some type of vlog stuff and just other types of videos out there. But yeah, I like books.
You're so adorable.
Well, hello everybody. I am Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. I am one of the YouTube veterans of the community. I've been doing this for about 8 years now, and I am someone who really likes to discuss everything about popular culture, books, film, television, music, Funko Pops, things that are going on in the news, what have you. But one of the few things that I have decided to do this year was to really full-on engage with people that I have met in the community and really try to incorporate a lot of the things that I do with other YouTubers in the community, because I'm someone that wants to see others that are good at heart, have things to say, who want to speak their minds freely. I want these people to be known. So I want to do everything that I can to help them out and grow and be successful, just as I have.
That is so, and guys, you should totally check out Steve's channel as well, because he will have a live show, I believe, on Wednesday, right? Is that right, Steve?
Yes, I'm actually going to be on Lori Dawson's channel. We're going to be talking about ideas and tips to give to people who are starting their channels, as well as a couple of other interesting things. And on Sunday, September 2nd, I'm going to be having my new episode of Sunday Sit Downs, which is going to be very personal for me this time, because I'm actually going to be interviewing a person that I actually met through YouTube, who is now one of my dearest friends in real life. And she is such a good friend and a good person to me and my wife, and I just am so excited to tell everybody how we actually decided to meet in person and become friends.
Awesome. That is so cool. Okay, so guys, today is going to be a very, very, very interesting topic to discuss, because we are going to be talking about representation in YA adaptation books and in films, and basically just talking about the overall idea of representation in film. I think you guys know why it's such a prevalent topic. You guys know how much I definitely speak about this on my channel and how much I advocate it, especially for the black representation as well. So we're going to be talking about a lot of things. So I will say that I'm going to give you guys trigger warnings, because there are going to be a lot of conversations of us talking about things that are kind of sensitive. So I will say that. But other than that, please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and I will definitely shout you guys out throughout this video. Does this sound good to you guys?
Let's do it.
Yeah, you ready to go? Awesome. Okay, so we're gonna jump right in. And my first question to you guys is, what does representation mean to you? Anyone can go first. That pause there. Like, what does the word representation, like, I know it's a hard question, so yeah, there's no right or wrong answers, but it's definitely, I'm going to jump right in with this.
You have officially put my Sunday Sit Down with you to shame with that question. You did a terrible job asking me a question. Okay, well, representation, oh, I'm sorry.
First thing I think of is like someone be able to see themselves like just anywhere, like in mainstream media or like books, to be just to normally like see themselves instead of like not. That makes any sense.
No, that's definitely a part of the discussion. I think that's super important. But I think so. I'll jump in, Steve, and let you think about it. But for me, representation is about opportunity, right? You know, like, so it goes a little bit more, at least to me, it goes a little bit more than just seeing myself on screen, but rather seeing that there's someone that has filled that space that I would love to be in. You know what I mean? So it's like, for instance, if I want to be an actress, I want to see women like me in film, so I know that, okay, I can be like that as well, or I can do this and I can do that. So the problem with representation is a lot of these people that, you know, whether you're a person of color or, you know, or LGBTQ or anything like that, it's so hard for us to find ourselves in film that we literally strive for any kind of like, oh, that person might be gay, or that person might be mixed or whatever, to find ourselves in that film or find ourselves in that book, because we weren't the default. So to me, that's kind of what representation means. So
I think for me, what representation has been, because I know right now it's a very hot button topic, and the way that it's been portrayed in the recent years is something very different from what I've always seen. For me, representation is characters that you can relate to. Not necessarily if you share the same skin color or the same sexual orientation, but people who you can relate to. Like, for me, someone who is portrayed in films or in books that has the same interests as me, or likes the same music as I do, or someone who has the same thought processes as me and how to solve a complex problem. I mean, honestly, I know that we'll tackle this a little bit later on, but the type of from a representation perspective, from my faith, which is Judaism, we don't see much of that in film right now, or in books, or whatever kind of entertainment. And quite frankly, I never really looked at that as something, as a disservice or something that I was upset about. I always just connected with characters that thought like me, acted like me. Like, I can connect with a character like Brody from Mallrats, played by Jason Lee, God knows how many times, because he talks about comics like I do with my best friends. So to me, that was the way that I always looked at representation as, but I honestly believe it's turned into a completely different animal.
Yeah, we're definitely going to go a little bit deeper into that with a future question. So we're going to move on. So the second question I have for you guys is, do you think remakes that cast people of color or women help the issue of representation? So like, we see that with movies like Annie, like casting a black woman, a black young girl to play Annie. We see that with A Wrinkle in Time with the main actress. I forgot her name, the name of her character in the story, but she's a young black girl and she's from a mixed family. Or Ocean's 8, where it's all women. Do you guys think that this solves the issue of representation or creates more problems? Like, I'm kind of curious to know what you guys think.
Sometimes, yes.
Opens a lot opportunities up, and like, it really pushes things forward, but also cause issues to where, like, if you're recasting or recreating entire movie, I guess, from the original. And like Annie, like, I actually did like Annie, even though like the music was different from like how I originally grew up with, but I really did like that change to it and brought it more of like a fresh take to it, and also letting a representation of a little black girl in a movie. So it's like a double-edged sword, I feel like, because like, it's really exciting to see all these things, but like with Ocean's 8, I know it was awesome seeing like a bunch of women, you know, team up to steal some jewelry and all that, but though I feel like as a film itself, it was disappointing though, but I did like seeing that, like, just a bunch of like that. So I feel like even like if like there is like whatever is cast, like the story also, I don't know, sometimes the story lacks, especially in blockbuster films, like the new Ghostbusters, like that came out a few years ago. There was just that I was just kind of disappointed by. So.
No, yeah, I completely agree with you, because it feels like the quality, a lot of times the quality does tend to suffer a little bit. And it's like, we have to, it's almost like a balance, like this kind of like this argument that's happening of like, okay, we have people of color, but then we have somewhat mediocre stories, you know, kind of thing. But then we have also stories that are very, very good because they're directly about people of color. It's not like they're trying to fit them into a space. It's more about, okay, this is about this said and said person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Steve? What do you think?
Well, I'm definitely going to have to put my film fan and my film critique cap on in regards to this, because that's definitely something that I talk about with people on a constant basis. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And the reason why there's so much backlash right now, it's not necessarily because of the fact that they're either changing an all-male cast to an all-women cast or changing a cast that was a bunch of white people to a mixed cast. What a lot of people are really upset about right now is the fact that Hollywood is not giving us any new ideas. Everybody is angry about the fact that the wheel is being reinvented in ways that it doesn't necessarily have to be. Maddie brought up the perfect film to explain that, and that is the recent Ghostbusters film. Now, I want to clear the air right now and say, when I found out that they were going to be making an all-female Ghostbusters, especially with the cast of fantastic comedians that they lined up, I was excited. I wanted to see it. I love each and every one of those actresses. They are so funny. The problem with the movie was it was a horribly written script, and it was just wasn't entertained by it as I was with the original Ghostbusters film. And my wife went to see this movie too. Like, yes, we chuckled a little bit. I think that Leslie Jones had the best lines in the entire film, but we both agreed, why couldn't this have been Ghostbusters 3? Like, why couldn't one of the characters, and it's funny because Leslie Jones ended up,
but like, not like a complete.
But it was like Leslie Jones ended up like being the niece of Ernie Hudson, the original Winston. But I was like, what if like one of them was actually like a niece or a daughter of one of the original 4 Ghostbusters, and they were inspired by what the Ghostbusters did in the 1980s, and they wanted to carry on the legacy, just continue the story. Because when they finished that movie and they were going to basically try and make a sequel based on the original plot of the first Ghostbusters film, I was like upset over the fact that they didn't want to try anything fresh and new, especially with a great cast. In terms of one way that it did work is the Richard Linklater directed film of Bad News Bears based on the 1976 film. They cast Billy Bob Thornton as the original role that was played by Walter Matthau, and a mixed group of kids, some black, Hispanic, white, some that were Middle Eastern. And while it was based on a movie that has already been made, it's not a movie necessarily that a lot of people have seen. It's a cult classic. So there's room for improvement. There's ways to give the people something new. And Richard Linklater gave us a fresh style of new humor. It was nothing like the original. And I personally thought that the new version was better than the old version. So it's a real mixed bag. But I really think that the major issue that's happening right now in entertainment is the fact that people are upset that everything is getting reinvented, especially things that were great, like the recreation of Roseanne, the recreation of Will and Grace. They want to now do a reboot of Frasier. I'm like, why? Why are you doing this?
Yeah, or like Fuller House, or like any of those. Like Fuller House did not need to happen. I'm sorry, but it didn't. Like,
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. It's cute.
My friend and I watched the first season, and we're just like, why is this even a thing? This is cringe. This is super cringy.
Yeah, or like for instance, and this was something else. Like I was not a big fan of Beauty and the Beast growing up. I didn't understand it. But then when they came up with the remake and Emma Watson was casted for Belle, I was like so excited because I love Emma Watson. And so when I went and saw it, I loved it, and it was great. But then I started to rewatch it again, and I watched it again, and I was like, why are they over explaining a lot of things, and why are they adding things that really don't really give a lot to the plot? Like, I understand, like, okay, like for me, Belle was always a feminist character. I always thought her as a feminist character. Like, it wasn't like in your face. It's not like she wore like a cat that said feminist, but it's like she was feminist in other ways. Like she didn't take things from the Beast lying down, and a lot of things. Like it's subtle, but it's there. So it's like, and then the thing is, when you watch the film, like the remake, there's all these like little microscopic little details. Like she teaches a kid how to read, and at that time, mind you, kids were in school. Like if you look at the time period, that's kind of historically inaccurate. But I digress. Anyway, so it's like those little things are like she's an inventor or all these things, and it's like, why are you making her this super like natural person, and it gives nothing for the plot. It's not like throughout the entire story, like she's inventing something that solves the plot problem or anything like that. Like it never comes up in the rest of the film. It's just a detail to say, okay, guys, we're riding the feminist train. So here's these little details. Yeah. It's like
there's so much emphasis put on that it was just kind of nauseating a bit to me.
Exactly.
And also gay, even though like that was like not even a thing with the story. And it was just kind of
and it's like, and the thing is also what was so controversial for me was that LGBTQ people, like in the history of cinema, it's so hard for them to find representation. Like literally, they will watch like it's either that they had to reach and try to make a character like oh, that person is gay, like with Rebel Without a Cause with Sal Mineo, where they thought his character was gay, but that wasn't really what it was, but they just grabbed onto him because there was no representation in the 50s. But then you had this change in the 60s, and then you have a film like The Children's Hour with Audrey Hepburn and Shirley MacLaine, and Shirley MacLaine turns out to be gay, in love with Audrey Hepburn's character, and she kills herself at the end. And it's like, so this is the kind of representation LGBTQ can see. It's either they're closeted and you're not really sure they're gay, or they hate themselves, or they're the villains. And it's like, so with that representation always there, it's so hard for them to see it. So Beauty and the Beast, literally you did the same thing with LeFou. You made him gay, but he never really comes out. There's maybe a split second where he's dancing.
Like, there's this like split scene, and then it's like non-existent for the rest.
Yeah, and it's like you're digressing back to the 50s. Like, what is going on?
I mean, for me, the problem was, how do you... I have an issue with these live-action classic Disney films in general. I don't know why they have to make them, because it's like, I adore the 1991 animated Beauty and the Beast. And when I found out that they were turning that into a live-action movie, I seriously asked, how do you improve upon perfection? The answer is you don't. Exactly. Now, for me, I actually liked Cinderella and I liked The Jungle Book because I loved how they added a little bit more character development to some of them. Like The Jungle Book was a great example because Shere Khan is not as menacing in the animated movie. Like, you just hear the name, but you really don't even get him until close to the end of the movie. In the live-action film directed by Jon Favreau, he's there right in the beginning, and you already know that he's a dominant threat in this jungle. And not to mention the fact that Idris Elba was amazing voicing him. But but that's the thing, is like, because of the fact that these two specific Disney classics, there was so much room for improvement. You could make a little bit more with them. It's like when I saw Christopher Robin, like, I was not looking forward to a live action Winnie the Pooh movie, but they gave me something different, something that was very nostalgic, because it reminded me a lot of Hook, which is one of my all-time favorite films. But this was so adorable, and I loved it. They did so many good things with it. And that's why I just don't appreciate, people getting on their proverbial soapboxes saying, come see our movie because we are doing this for this character and this for that character. And at the end, it's so minuscule.
Yes. And you know what? That's actually... Oh, I'm so sorry, Maddie. What were you saying?
It's like, that's what I feel like what's been happening, especially, let's say, with Beauty and the Beast. And I remember, like, even with, like, Harry Potter, Dumbledore, that irritates me. But like with a lot of other films, it's like, oh, we have a diverse cast, like all this representation, come see it, and that's basically the only reason why. Well, I mean, it is a good reason, but it's never they never really mention the story. Like, I even see with books, of pronoun books, it's always like, yes, like the representation there, it's really awesome, but they never go into what the story is actually about. That would draw people even more into the story, and then appreciate these characters and fall in love with those characters.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest with you guys have touched on a lot of great points, and it actually leads us directly into our third question, which is crazy.
Beautiful.
But basically, I'm going to turn it to Black representation, especially with the topic of my last video. I know you guys have probably seen it, where I talked about Black representation for booktubers in basically platforms and panels on, like, in places like BookCon and things like that. We can definitely add, we can definitely talk about that if you guys want to add it to this question. But my question is, Black women representation is becoming a lot more prominent with castings of women like Yara Shahidi, Amandla Stenberg, Alexandria Shipp, Zendaya. But there is this problem, especially in YA adaptations, to casting Black women with a lighter tone, contrary to what is described in the book, or even extending that opportunity to darker women. So I wanted to ask, what do you guys think about this? Because I know that this is a topic that has been brought up time and time again. Like, I'm sure it's not your first time hearing about the issue of colorism, and especially with the casting of Amandla Stenberg in the role of Star Carter in what was the book? The Hate You Give. Yeah, so I know that that's a very, very controversial. So you guys, so who wants to go first with answering that question?
Like, what? Okay, so like I heard about Amandla Stenberg, actually the whole thing after, actually when I started watching Grownish. Mm-hmm. That one episode on colorism, it like really brought to my attention, and then I watched Shahidi, and then another girl's video on that, and then I started hearing about Amandla Stenberg, and then now when I watch films with Black women, it's always like lighter skin tones, and I always see that it's definitely evident now, and it is an issue, and especially with how with people are having issue because Amandla is biracial, but she's playing a full Black girl.
Yeah.
Like Star is described as dark skin and all that, and there's like, I mean, I'm really excited for the movie, but like that also issue has to be acknowledged.
Yeah, and it's frustrating too for a lot of girls, because for me specifically, I've dealt with colorism. This isn't the first time I've talked about it on my channel. I will continue to talk about it, but I've dealt with colorism, and I do see firsthand of women of lighter tone, whether they are light skin, biracial, or even brown skin, like my color, like they get opportunities before dark skinned women. And that's something that is such a problem, because at the end of the day, not only is the media missing an entire market of women that they can market to, but also it's like, you're limiting the opportunities for dark-skinned women to be able to fill those spaces of, you know, being writers and actors and producers and innovators. And they want to see themselves. They want to feel like they have that platform, someone that represents them, that can give them that drive. Like, okay, I can go there because there's a girl that looks just like me, that has the same struggles that I do, that talks about things that I'm passionate about it in a way that I can relate to on a deep level. And there's that disconnect there. And I think there's also this problem where a lot of these actresses, like Zendaya, for instance, who she did talk about it, I think, in the past, but I haven't heard her talk about it more since then, because she's becoming bigger and bigger every year. But then you have people like Yara Shahidi, who is casted in The Sun Is Also a Star, and who is supposed to be a Jamaican woman. And I'm sorry, I'm reading that book now, and I see a dark-skinned woman. I don't see someone that looks like Yara Shahidi. And on top of that, then you see The Hate You Give. And then what was really annoying to me was the fact that Amandla Stenberg did that whole thing where in I don't know if you guys heard, but in Black Panther, she auditioned and dropped out of the process because she said that she didn't feel like she felt that she should be in that space. That space should be for girls of darker skin or whatever. She's the one that brought up this idea of colorism. But then at the same time is casted in The Hate You Give. You get what I'm saying?
She was like casted before the book even came out too. So like it's weird to bring that up.
Well, at the same time, I mean, when it comes to the casting, I mean, one of the few things that I'm very appreciative about now these days with film that are adapted from books is the fact that the writers actually have a massive hand in the movies going from book to script to screen, which I think is wonderful. I mean, if we didn't have, I mean, let's just put it this way, J.K. Rowling pretty much set the bar for that when she was part of the whole creative process of the Harry Potter franchise, and the rest is history. But honestly, it's a very hard question for me personally to answer, being a white man, but honestly, I just want to see talented people on screen. And one of the few things that I'm very happy about is that we are seeing a lot more women of color on the screen, and not just being on the screen, but doing a damn good job. I mean, thank goodness that Amandla Stenberg turned down that role in Black Panther, because I don't think anyone and their mother would have known who Letitia Wright was. And let me tell you, she was fantastic in that movie. And
also fantastic in a Black Mirror episode. I forgot what it's called, but she was really
Night Museum, I think.
Yeah.
And not that many people knew who Denai Guerrero was, especially if they weren't watchers of The Walking Dead. And as Okoye, she is absolutely fantastic. I'm really surprised that an actress like Asia Naomi King, who was in How to Get Away with Murder, alongside my goddess, Viola Davis, I have no idea why she's not in other projects, because I think she's a fantastic actress. But one of the other things, and I'm glad that you brought this up, because I realized something. I notice these days, even in films or television shows that do have a predominantly Black cast, there are very few women in the cast. A perfect example is the Netflix series Luke Cage. It's very popular. A lot of people watch it, but the only woman in the show is, well, two women. It's Alfre Woodard and the actress that plays the cop. And I'm like, where are all the other women? You know, like, it doesn't make sense to me.
The actress who plays Claire in there too.
Oh yeah,
Forgot
Rosario Dawson. Rosario Dawson.
Yes.
Sorry.
And I think, isn't she biracial? I'm pretty sure
she's biracial, I believe.
Yeah. So the way it works, this is just from my own experience. What tends to happen, especially in media, is that when it comes to Black people, Black men tend to have opportunities handed to them, like not handed to them, I'm sorry, but extended to them before Black women. It has always been that way, and that's because we do live in a society where men do get the first consideration in terms of extending opportunity, and that's something that we see historically, right? I mean, women didn't get the right to vote until the 1920s. And men had it right way before. In Black, in Black history, Black men were extended the right to vote before women. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's like it's always the man first and then the woman follows after. And the thing is, especially in Black culture, it tends to continue, right? Like a lot of these guys, especially in the music that they watch, in the way that they portray women on music videos, like the way that they portray women, not only women like across the board, but Black women specifically, is a way that is very, it can be very condescending, it can be very sexist, and it can be very demeaning for the woman's body, for the woman's just intellect, and just a lot of these things, because it's a way of promoting Black men over Black women. This isn't the case all across the board. This is just something that tends to happen and is part of the culture. But that's an issue, I think, within the Black community first. And I think that that's something that if it's solved in the Black community first, it can radiate outside of the community. I don't know if I'm making any sense to you guys.
Oh, no, you're making perfect.
You're making perfect sense. I get it. But I still feel that there are so many Black actresses out there that I see that do so well at the jobs they do. Another one that I want to mention is I just had her. Shanola Hampton. She plays Veronica in one of my favorite shows, Shameless. She is also one of the funniest parts of the whole show. I love her character so much. And I'm really shocked that, well, actually, I'm kind of shocked that very few of the actual cast even has any roles outside of Shameless. I mean, the only one who seems to really be getting a lot of jobs is Cameron Monaghan. Yeah. But he's a great actor. I won't deny the fact that he's a great actor. He is fantastic. But it's weird. It's weird to me. It really is.
Okay. And I think that definitely, since we're doing so well with the conversation, we're going to jump into the next question. And the next question is, do you think that media has an agenda with its promotion of interracial romance, like we see with To All the Boys I Loved Before, Everything, Love, Simon, like all these movies have this idea of a mix of like interracial culture, interracial romance. What, like, do you guys think that this is an agenda? Do you guys think that
it's always like a white person and then like either like a black or Asian, as in two I was about look before character.
Yeah.
Never like two, like let's say like Hispanic and black or Asian.
Yeah.
It's never like two non-white people of color.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And not that that's the problem, because that's not a problem. Opportunity should always be with everyone. Everyone should have the opportunity to fill those spaces. But the issue is that it's almost like the opportunity is being kind of restricted. It's like, okay, we're going to give a little, like, to all, for instance, to All the Boys I Loved Before. I loved that movie. I think Noah Centineo is incredible. I think he's an actor to watch. He's on the rise. And I think Lana, I forgot her last name. I'm sorry. But she's incredible, like incredible actress. But it's like, I also saw this trend on Twitter of people talking about, why is it that an Asian woman has to be with a white man? Why couldn't it have been Asian? And now I don't know what Jenny Han had in mind when she was writing, because I haven't read the book yet. So I'm not exactly sure who she had in mind to play Peter Kavinsky. But that definitely is something to be said of, why is it that romances that are like these movies that have romances, why is it promoted that it's always a white person with another person? Not that it's a bad thing or good thing. It's actually great to see. I think it's great to see cultures mix. But I think also it should also be like movies maybe about like an African person and someone from Syria, or maybe an Asian person with a black person, or a South American person with a, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a different,
like, should be one set of interracial relationship.
Exactly.
Like, you know, actually realistic and what's actually in real life with all these different cultures and ethnicities all just.
Oh yeah, and you'll see, and especially like you'll see, like, for instance, in Miami, it's very common to go out and see like Black people with Hispanic people, and that is an interracial romance. Not only is that interracial, but that's intercultural. You know what I mean? Or you'll see like maybe I don't know, like someone that is Black mixed with someone that's Indian or Trinidadian, and that is a mix. Like that, like seeing those kind of people represented, because that is what United States is made up of. There's all these different groups that also fall in love with each other and have children together, and you know, and like it also happens. So it would be interesting to see films where you see that. Like, for instance, you have Crazy Rich Asians, where it's all about just all these people from different countries in Asia all together in this film, and it's so incredible to see. Like, I realized that since the Joy Luck Club, I've never seen a film with all Asian people.
I really want to see that movie still.
I'm sorry?
I still really want to see that movie still.
I've only seen a part of it because I was watching like a pirated version because I'm cheap. but it was great. It's so cool, and it's so funny, and it shows how successful this film is. Shows that these films can be made, and there can be like money made from it. So then there's no reason not to see more of it. You know what I mean? What do you think, Steve?
Oh boy, this is a tough thing to talk about, because the last thing that I want to do is say something that might come off as wrong. But
no, of course
I will say something extremely controversial. But let me just say that this is not my train of thought. I would say, if you want to know if it's actually an agenda, then you might want to contact someone who belongs to the alt-right, because they probably got some stories to tell you in regards to their thoughts in regards to that. You just
go to the Facebook comments of like any like trailer for any.
But all I'm saying is it a conspiracy? Is it something that is supposed to be pushing a message? I don't really know what to think in regards to that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, I mean, for me, there are whole other levels in terms of people of different skin colors and different faiths having relationships, marrying, having kids. Because for me, the one thing that I focused on in terms of finding my mate and having a life was making sure that the person was of the same faith as I was. Faith to me was more important than what the person looks like in terms of their skin color, because I have relatives who have had mixed racial marriages, but they were still of the same faith. So there was nothing wrong with the fact that people of two different skin colors got married. There was nothing wrong with that because they shared the same moral beliefs from the same religion. So there was nothing wrong with that. But I also still feel like, my own personal opinion, I think if there is a message that's there, the fact that it's always a white person having a relationship with a different culture or a different skin color is probably, and again, I'm not sure about this, I don't know, maybe it's because of the fact that white is still the dominant skin color of the country.
Yeah.
So they're trying to show that there are people from other backgrounds that white people are looking to in terms of finding love and finding relationships. But one of the other things that we also need to know is the fact, because this I know is definitely true, that mixed marriages are still very much a red flag to a large portion of the country.
Yeah.
We still have a lot to learn, because there are still many, you will not see as many mixed marriages these days as you will with same skin color, same faith marriages. Like, whites will still probably marry whites first. Blacks will still marry blacks first. Chinese will still marry Chinese first. I mean, I still remember, I don't know, I fall into the deep, dark corners of the internet. I found these Pizza Hut commercials from Malaysia.
Oh, wow.
And there was a commercial where an Indian woman married a Chinese man, and the son's mother hated her because she wasn't Chinese.
Yeah.
So it was really, the commercial, while it was only 30 seconds long, she basically through the magic of Pizza Hut and good pizza, she managed to find a connection with this Indian woman, managed to find a connection with her Chinese mother-in-law.
Yeah.
So it's something that it's definitely something where the statistics are increasing, but it's still not the norm. So I feel right now, the fact that you're seeing it everywhere, some people are still not getting it because it's still something that not everybody sees to be an all the time thing. You know what I mean?
You're so right. And to be honest with you, it's something that personally I love seeing it, because in my family, we are, we're Caribbean Black. Like, my parents are from Haiti and I was born here. But at the same time, my family is extremely mixed. Like, we have family that is mixed with Italian and Irish and Asian. Like, we have all these different people mixed. And even in the Caribbean, like, some have married Jamaicans, some have married Cubans and Puerto Ricans. So we are quite mixed of a family. So it is important to show that. And I think that in a way, it's something that is endearing, I think, to see it, because it's like, when you see how murky historically the racial divide has been, like between whites and blacks, to see a white man with a black woman or see a black man with a white woman, it's something that is quite amazing to see, because it's like, wow, like, these people have went over so many barriers and have fallen in love and are together. Like, that's something that's so incredibly beautiful. When I saw To All the Boys I Loved Before, like, I've always seen Asian people like shown in the most racial way. Like, it was so funny when in the film they were playing 16 Candles, and I remember that scene, and I remember I remember when me and my sister were watching it together, I said the same exact thing. I'm like, this is so racist, the way that they were portraying the Chinese maid. I believe he was
the 80s. And that was the 80s.
And that was the 80s, exactly. So to have a film like this where it's almost like, I thought it was like a really, really genius idea of the director to play that film and have that film being watched by an interracial couple. You know what I mean? Like, it was so cool to do.
But here's something interesting. Think about how we had, even before it really started to be something that became a talking point, think about a couple of times where it happened, where you actually saw people from different skin colors actually having relationships, and suddenly, and nobody seemed to care. I mean, didn't Dean Thomas have a relationship with Ginny Weasley? Didn't Harry Potter kiss Cho Chang? Nobody cared. Yeah. It happened, and nobody cared.
Yeah, no, that's exactly true. But the thing is also, there is this way of portraying, especially Asian characters as these kind of very stereotypical, loud, like obnoxious kind of people, and like they're the help, or they're the chatty friend, or they're trying to assimilate another culture, because there's also the stereotype that Asians assimilate other cultures, like Black culture and white culture and all that. So all those stereotypes are always shown in the films. So when I was watching this movie, and I was like, wow, like this is like, I relate to Lara Jean. Like I am Lara Jean. Like I've watched the same films. I love the same thing that she does. She wears so many colors. Like she's so relatable on a deep level. And then a movie like Crazy Rich Asians, where I'm literally learning about these different cultures, and I'm like, that food looks amazing. Oh, what's that place? And I'm looking it up as I'm watching the movie, and I'm like, this is incredible. You know what I mean? Like it's just you're being introduced into a whole other world, and that's the power of film. You know what I mean? You can't get that.
Well, one of the interesting things that I would like to bring up, and it might be a little bit out of the box. Americans have been exposed to Asian culture more than they think that they did, but it's also because of the fact that the ways that it has been shown is something that not many people watch. There are a lot of people out there that watch anime, and there's a lot of Japanese culture in anime, especially the animes that are romantic comedies. Shows like some of my favorites, like Love Hina or Princess Nine or Ranma One Half, and a lot of the Studio Ghibli films. There's a great deal of Japanese culture in these films, but one of the few things that I always get offended by is when people say, oh, but it's animated, it's not real. Not necessarily true. I dare anybody who feels that way to watch a brilliant film called Grave of the Fireflies, which is an animated film about Japan in World War II. And then I'd like you to come back to me. You can't get more real than that. Or another great film from Studio Ghibli is Whisper of the Heart, which is a beautiful story, a nice little slice of life, coming of age story about a little Japanese girl, and you see her home life, you see the traditions, the fact that they take their shoes off when they enter the room, the fact that they always have the sit down meals together as a family, the family shrine. There are so many beautiful pieces of Japanese culture scattered all throughout anime that people don't even know about because they don't know where to look. And it's crazy that this specific style of film didn't become popular from the mainstream, crazily enough, until Pokemon came out. When Pokemon came out, anime was everywhere. I mean, take a look at Sailor Moon. Girls who go to school in Japan wear those outfits. That's Japanese culture. That's schoolgirl outfit.
Yeah, and you know what? And I'm actually following this live chat as we're talking. Yeah. And where in the world?
Comments.
Yeah, and where in the world? I'm so sorry, guys, because we were trying to keep up with the questions, and I'm reading the comments, and you guys are incredible. Like, it's amazing to see, and it's making me a little bit teary-eyed. It's amazing. But yeah, so. Where in the world is Leia Jane? Sorry, she says a really interesting question that I didn't even think about. She says that talking about, yes, that is problematic. Like when people use the word problematic and then move on and like pivot. I think that is such an important part of this discussion because, Steve, you and me, we've talked about this a little bit. Maddie, I'm not sure if we talked about this, but the idea of trigger warnings or saying that, oh yeah, this is problematic because it has this such and such and whatever. I think that that's something that should definitely be part of this conversation. What do you guys think about when someone's
I would love to take that. I would love to take that if I may.
Yeah, of course.
I cannot stand that word anymore. It has literally become taboo. because when someone just says that's problematic, well, then my question is, what's problematic? Tell me. And that's the main problem that I'm having with this culture war that we're in the middle of. The fact that there are such polar opposites right now, regardless of politics, regardless of entertainment, regardless of all of these hot button topics. And nobody wants to explain their reasoning. And when someone from the other side wants to extend the hand across the aisle and find out a little bit more, they're not going to let them in. Because like there's this horrible mentality right now. It's that famous saying, you don't know what someone else is like until you've walked a mile in their shoes. But these people who don't want to share with people take the second line, which is you don't know somebody until you've walked a mile in their shoes. Then you'll be a mile away from those people and you'll have their shoes. That's the way that they feel. They feel that if they let one bit of vulnerability out, they feel that they're going to get brutally attacked and they're going to just be ripped to shreds. That is far from the truth. I mean, Joe, when you and I have talks about politics, I mean, look at us. We're still standing. We're still friends. And we are willing to discuss what's on our minds respectively. And even if there's something that you say that I don't agree with, or there's something that you say that I don't agree with, I won't rest until I understand why you believe that way. So and then I want you to understand how I feel. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way that it always has been. People were able to live in this world as neighbors who just don't agree with the way each other feels, but yet we still manage to say good morning to each other and ask how our families were. Now, if someone is a Democrat and hates the fact that his or her neighbor's a Trump supporter, no one's talking to each other. And I feel that that is wrong.
No, you are so incredibly right. And I think one of the biggest issues about saying something is problematic is the idea that you're saying it's fine if you want to go ahead and say, okay, this is problematic because you're aware that there's a problem. You're aware that there's something that is wrong. But when you say something is problematic and you just move on, or you say something is problematic and you don't give an explanation of why it's problematic, then we're going into, then what's the point? What's the point of even bringing it up and saying it's problematic? And I noticed that that's something that a lot of people do, or a lot of people say that it's problematic and they're kind of fishing for a reason of why it's problematic. Like they think they know it's problematic. They just don't know why. And those people are the first people that will stand in front of the line and just spew out all these opinions. And it's like, whoa, relax. Like there's people that have, like, for instance, the issue of sexual harassment and violence against women. That is something that a lot of times people take that conversation and they take it, and it's like everyone has an opinion, but they're not actually listening to the victims. And not only are they not listening to the victims, but they're not listening to the people that have actually done it. You know what I mean? It's have an open discussion with men that maybe have hurt other people, or who have, you know, thoughts like that, or who have, you know, like for instance, I saw this video by, I forgot his name, but he plays Raphael on Jane the Virgin. He has this incredible YouTube channel. I suggest you guys check it out. I will leave it in the link once this video becomes part of my channel. But he basically had this open panel of all these men sitting at this table talking about sexual harassment in Hollywood, and he had different men. Two men were sexual assault victims, and the other men were men that were just regular men that were talking about how different ways they might have embodied patriarchal attitudes, like the way that they talked about women and the way that they saw women and stuff like that. And they just wanted to be educated, and they were having this wide discussion talking about it. And I loved this so much. But at that table, I didn't see any women victims. It would have been interesting to have a woman sitting at that table talking about her experiences and talking about it. I'm someone, and I'm openly talk about it. I have been molested, and I have had those experiences where I've had sexual violence done to me. And so not seeing someone talk about it, they were part of the episode, but they weren't at the table talking to these men that have done or talked about women in a certain way. And I would have loved to have seen that. And that's something that is so incredibly important.
They also need to show that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Like, I just like talking about, I haven't seen like the video or anything like that, but the fact that there were women at that table, like if there were, definitely, it feels like it would have opened up a whole lot more to the conversation and kind of closed some sort of gap between like the men and women or anybody else involved in sexual harassment, whether it was perpetrator or the victim or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be conversation from both sides instead of just like at the table, like from that.
And so what other people also need to know is that sexual harassment is not just a man sexually harassing a woman. I mean, look at what's happening right now. That major voice in the Me Too movement now has a male speaking out against her for sexually harassing him.
Yeah,
and
no, like I said, in the video, there was 2 sexual assault victims, like, and they were men, and they were talking about being hurt by other men. And that's something that happens. I mean, that was even featured in 13 Reasons Why, as problematic as that show is. And there's a lot of things that we can, that is like a whole other live show.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I mean, but it's still the idea of this happened to a guy. And this is something that does happen. Like, men touch other men and are sexually assault other men. Like, you see cases where priests are molesting young boys. Like, this is something
like this one priest, I feel like, I remember reading, just coming across an article on it about, I don't think he will get any.
Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. My sister's calling me. I'm so sorry. Go on.
I think it said something about him just like not actually getting a real punishment. It's just kind of like shame on you type of. I can't remember like what exactly happened, but basically could got away with it in a way. And got no actual consequence from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly. And actually, this is actually goes into technically into the next question, because we are talking about body and body autonomy. And this is actually going to be a question I've been really, really excited to ask this. But my question to you guys is, there is still this lack of positive or desirable representation of women and men of different body types. With a movie like Sierra Burgess is a Loser, why do you guys think it took so long? And do you think that this representation of body image will be extended to men?
I feel like so.
Oh, I mean, either of you guys can go ahead.
I mean, that's, I'll be honest with you, that's something that I've never focused on. I mean, like I said, it's not something that I've ever really cared much about while watching films or reading books, because those aren't the things that I focus on what makes a good character. I mean, I don't think that that's something that hasn't been done to men. I mean, like, I just watched one of my favorite films of all time, which is completely politically incorrect, and that's Animal House. I mean, Flounder and John Belushi were not the most attractive of men in that film, Bluto and Flounder, but we loved them because they were just hilarious characters. So for me, it's like, I mean, I'll give you a very interesting live example. I remember when I used to talk to my old boss and we just had some casual conversations, and I was always struggling I was constantly struggling in the dating circuit. And he was telling me, it's like, at the end of the day, when it really comes down to it, Steve, the looks are not necessarily going to be the true driving force in what makes a great relationship. And he said, why do you think that all these ugly comedians are dating supermodels as girlfriends? He says, it's because they're funny. They have a great personality. And he says, I guarantee you, the reason why you're having such bad luck is because of the fact that women that you're dating just don't get you. It's not the fact, he said, you're not ugly. He said, yeah, you can. I mean, like, he jokes around. I said, yeah, you're vertically challenged. There's no doubt in saying that I'm short. I'm a short guy. And there's no shame in saying that I sound like a 10-year-old girl, which is also true. But at the same time, it's like, that really should never have been a driving focus. But unfortunately, sometimes for many it is, because everybody's judging everybody. But then again, that's what we are. We're humans. We're judging each other. And quite frankly, with all of the pushes that there are right now in terms of acceptance, I don't think, and this is just me thinking out loud, and I may be entirely wrong about this, and quite frankly, in about maybe 40, 50 years, maybe shorter than that, maybe I will be wrong, but I don't think we're ever going to stop being judgmental towards anybody. I mean, if I could be a little bit true, if I could be honest with you guys,
yeah.
when I mean, look, I'm a married guy, and I love my wife to death, but look, sometimes when I'm walking in New York City, I do see a lot of very attractive women.
Yeah.
But the minute I see one of those beautiful women put a cigarette in her mouth, she's trash to me, because I am totally against smoking. I think that that's disgusting, and I never understand why someone who was blessed with the image that God gave to her, you're literally making yourself so unattractive, and it's going to destroy your body in the coming years. Like, why do you smoke? Like, why do you smoke cigarettes? I never understand, and that's like a massive turnoff to me. And that has nothing. And would that be classified as an image feature?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I think I agree with you. That maybe for men it's different, because again, I'm not a man, so I don't really know, what tends to happen in the psyches of a man, and what he wants, and what he asks, what he would like to see in film, or if he even thinks that far ahead and just takes it as it goes. But I think from a women's perspective, seeing a movie like Sarah Burgess, when I saw that she is the main love interest, I was like literally like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm going to, like, I want to see this film. Like, this is amazing. Because a lot of times when you watch, I don't know if you guys have seen, but like a lot of these movies, and again, it enters that idea of insatiable now that I'm going to mention.
I was actually thinking about that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I saw the trailer for that.
A plus size. Yeah, whenever you have like a plus size person, or a person that is just big or thick or whatever it is, she's always the laughing joke. Or she wears a fat suit, and then she becomes pretty and thin and whatever, and then she learns what's on the inside, but at the same time is still very attractive and is like wearing a size 6. Like, it's just, it's one of those things where it's always portrayed that way. So, and I think what's so deep about this next film, which as much as I love To All the Boys I Loved Before, and I'm so excited for the trilogy, I feel like this rom-com is going to be so much deeper, and it's going to be a rom-com that's going to be so incredibly unique, because he gets to fall in love with her through text. And that's something that's so deep. It goes beyond color. It goes beyond size. It goes beyond physical. It's all about the mental connection between two people. And at the essence of it, that's what a great romance is about. You know what I mean?
Actually, yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of these writers need to see. Like, they need to see that you can make great films featuring plus size people. You can make great films featuring thick people, or people with, big breasts and big butts or whatever. Like, they're not thin people. You can feature them, but make them as well-rounded characters, just like you, Steve, like you said, like, you want to see characters like that. It's not about how they look. And that's so incredibly true. If you make well-rounded, relatable characters, people will get behind that. People will love that film no matter what. And that's why I feel like hopefully this film will open the door, if it does as well as To All the Boys I Loved Before is doing now, and Crazy Rich Asians. I hope that this will open up the door to more women. And I hope that this is also extended to women of color that are plus size and that are big and thick, because a lot of times we're either sexualized, or we're made the laughing joke, or we're the victim, like you see with the movie Precious a few years ago. I don't know if you guys have seen Precious.
I haven't seen it, but I know that it was a very praiseworthy film. I mean, didn't Monique win Best Supporting Actress at the Oscars for that role?
Oh yeah, it was a great film. Don't get me wrong, it was a great film.
I just want to mention, like, there's look at all the great roles that Octavia Spencer gets now, because she's a great actress. She is wonderful. And I had this thought while you were saying, is like, if the writers of great comedy films can only finally give Melissa McCarthy the perfect comedic role since Bridesmaids, everybody wants to love her dearly. Ever since she filmed Bridesmaids, she was the ugliest woman on film, but everybody loved her because she had so much character. She was drop dead hysterical. And the best part is, she wasn't necessarily like, while she was the comic relief, the thing that I loved most about her character in Bridesmaids was the fact that she knew she was a badass. She didn't care about what she looked like. I'm going to take all that I have right now and I'm going to run with it and I'm not going to stop. And that's why she was so loved.
Yeah, or even when she played Suki in Gilmore Girls, I love Suki. Like I didn't care that she was big. I didn't care that she ate while she cooked. I did not care about all that. I just loved Suki, and I loved her relationship with Lorelai, and I loved her relationship with her husband, and their budding romance before. Like, Gilmore Girls was amazing because Suki was a great, at least to me. Like, I thought Suki was one of the best characters. But again, it's like one of those things, if you look beyond the physical, because another part of Hollywood too that we talk about self-image a lot. You know what I mean? We talk a lot about weight, and we talk about how our bodies are shaped, and we have our insecurities. A lot of women, all our insecurities stems from like body image and seeing what's on Instagram and seeing what's on Snapchat and seeing people like Kendall Jenner or seeing someone like Zendaya. For me, like when I see someone like Zendaya or when I see someone like Gabrielle Union before, and there's beautiful women that are very, very thin and small all over, but I'm not like that. I am a Caribbean woman to the max. Like, I am curvy, I am big, and I don't see anyone. And whenever I see someone that looks like me on film, they're always sexualized. And that's how growing up. It also, like, growing up when I had those sexual violent experiences, I thought it was because of my body. I thought it was, and it gets to a point where it's not even just about, it's not about aesthetics, right? It's not about like, oh yeah, I want to be as beautiful as her, but it becomes this part of like, it's my livelihood. Like, it's my safety. Like, my body looks the way it does, and people see it and think sex. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, it becomes, that's when self-image becomes harmful. And I think that, you know.
Well, that's another problem with Hollywood. Another problem with Hollywood is, yes, you see a lot of these actors and actresses that have these gorgeous bodies, but you have no idea what they have to do to keep these bodies maintained. Like, these people have unrealistic diets, and they have to exercise. Like, I remembered once watching what Usher has to go through every goddamn day to keep his appearances. And I'm like, I'd probably die because I could never do the exercises that he could do and barely eat a drop of anything and look like that, because that's what it is. It's like, these people may look good, but are they actually healthy? It's one of the main reasons why I admire women like, even today, like, Jennifer Aniston is not ultra thin. Neither is Jessica Alba. Neither is Jennifer Lopez. They definitely show us that you can have a normal looking body. I mean, look, I could look a lot better. I won't deny that. My issue is I have a sweet tooth. I like to eat ice cream. I like to eat candy. I like to eat chocolate. There are weeks where I will basically spend my entire lunch, like every single lunch is nothing but a healthy sandwich, a low-calorie drink, and fruit. And if I do not indulge and I eat a well-balanced breakfast, lunch, and dinner, yes, I will lose like 3 to 4 pounds. But I'll put it all back on if I want to spoil myself with a treat. That's the thing that Hollywood doesn't do. They don't treat themselves. They can't do that because their agents and their managers say that if you do that, you're going to be thrown out of this circuit because you're not going to be looking good anymore. So there's pressure on them. It's not an easy life.
No, of course. You're very right. I'm sorry, Maddie, what were you going to say?
It's just like when you're talking about like maintaining like a certain image, like with like not treating yourself or just like trying to keep to like a certain diet or look or whatever, it feeds a lot with negative body image, and even develops disordered eating and all that whole other topic into that with body image and all that too, with even in films and media.
Yeah, but I do hope, like, to go back to the question, I do hope that we see more films, more rom-coms, more romances where you see women that are different body types that are desirable, because there's another thing too of having someone that is, like, their body is not, doesn't fit that agenda of the self-image, but at the same time they're ashamed of it or they hate themselves for it. It would be interesting to see a character that is actually confident and is the love interest and is desirable and loves their body the way they are. And I feel like it's really hard to find that in a way where it's actually like a film that I would actually enjoy. But I want to move on to our second to last question, because we have 2 more questions left.
Right.
But this is actually geared toward Maddie. You can definitely jump in, but this is more geared towards Steve, this question. But it is, why do you think we barely see other ethnic or religious groups being represented, like Native Americans or Jews?
Well, the interesting thing about the Jews is, well, like I said, like, I am of the Jewish faith. I was born into a Jewish family. I actually celebrated the holidays. I came from a very, not an extremely religious family, but a practicing family. So I've grown up with the traditions and a lot of the laws that govern the Jewish people via the Old Testament. The reason why there is not much Jewish representation in film, and this is going to be a very interesting thing to say, is the fact that we don't want it. And I'll explain why.
Yeah.
It's because when you take a look at the Jewish people through history, they are the most persecuted group of people in the world. They have been banished from their homeland way too many times. Every place that they lived in, they were forced out. And the reason why was because of the fact that they didn't do everything like everybody else. They didn't observe the same religions. They didn't observe the same practices. And because of the fact that they were so different, that was where there was a lot of anti-Semitism starting to build. One of the interesting things, the original origins of anti-Semitism happened after the bubonic plague. Because of the fact that the Jewish people in Europe were forced to live in closed communities to themselves, and the fact that they did that, they were also extremely clean. And because of the fact that they were clean, that's why the rats never came into their enclosed communities. So they never got the plague. So because of the fact that half of Europe was almost eliminated, and yet the Jews managed to survive, they were like, they're evil people, witchcraft, throw them out. And in the Inquisition, they were thrown out of Spain because they didn't want to accept the church. They didn't say that the church was wrong. It's just not our bag. It's not our religion. We believe in something else. We wish peace upon you, plain and simple. Not good enough. Yeah. So when the Jewish people started to immigrate to America, particularly in the 1800s, in the late 1800s after the Civil War, they didn't want to be looked upon as inferior. They didn't want to be excluded. They wanted to blend in. They wanted to be a part of America. So when a lot of the major film studios were starting to be created in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, people like the leaders of Warner Brothers and Fox and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, aka MGM Studios, what's very interesting is, outside of very few, most of the major film studios in America were all created and run by Jewish people. But their sole purpose was to show the least amount of Jewish people in their films, because they didn't want people to know that there was somebody different in your community. Yeah,
but that's what's so interesting to me, because I personally would love to see, so sorry guys.
Don't worry about it.
But I personally am interested in seeing more of Jewish culture. Like, I just watched, like, I remember, because I'm still in school, and so I watched my first Yiddish film, and that was like really, really cool to see. I'd never seen a film like that, and it was the idea of time and Jewish letters, and it was so incredibly interesting. I personally would love to see, But that's just me. I personally would love to see more films where I see Jewish people. Like, for instance, I had never seen a film starring an Irish person until I saw Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. And the only other Irish person that I knew was my friend Brenna, and my cousin that's mixed with Irish, and because of his dad. And before that, I knew nothing about Irish culture. And since seeing that film, I was so much more interested to learn about the country and its language, and read James Joyce and read all these, and look for other Irish writers, and or a show like Outlander, where it's about Scotland, and it's about like the culture of the Scottish culture, and it's so interesting. And again, it goes against that notion that white people have no culture. You know, that little thing that people like to throw around? Yeah. Like
people have a big blend of different cultures. That's what white culture is.
It makes me Irish in my family history. Like my grandparent.
Yeah.
My dad died. Like they have Irish in the background, but I just never. Same thing with my mom's side. Even her adopted and biological side are all have German backgrounds, and so like I don't have. It's like disconnect. Like it doesn't really exist, but I really want to know more about it.
Or another great film that I saw was The Life of Others, and this is a German film. And so if you really want to see that representation of other ethnic films, you have to go outside into foreign films and stuff like that to see it. But I would love to see it to see from an American perspective, like people from those places that have come here, that live here as immigrants or generations, like different generations, and see their stories and see what kind of creative movies and storylines could come from that. I would love to.
I want to see that a lot.
There's another interesting thing that I could say that actually branches out into Jewish culture. What's very interesting is when you actually take a look at Jewish people living in America, especially throughout history, you won't see much of the faith in terms of representation of Jews, but you would be amazed at how many things Jews have had their hands in America, both good and bad. I mean, you probably know some of these names. You probably have heard Arnold Rothstein, Meyer Lansky, Bugsy Siegel, gangsters. They were connected to the mafia. So there was Bugsy Siegel and Meyer Lansky are the reason why Las Vegas is Las Vegas.
Wait, isn't Bugsy that movie starring Warren Beatty?
That is correct.
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay. I know what you're talking about.
Another interesting thing is when you take a look at a more recent film, The Wolf of Wall Street.
So true.
Jordan Belfort, Stratton Oakmont. This was all a bunch of 20-year-old Jewish guys that put this all together. You want to know an interesting story? My brother-in-law's father is someone who was actually friends with Jordan Belfort, and he was actually asked, "Do you want to get in on this?" And he said no, because he knew they were up to no good.
That's crazy.
But Jewish culture in America is very interesting because some of the things that you would never know were actually given to the world by Jews. I'll give you two very interesting examples that you probably never knew. Maybe you did. Blue jeans.
Blue jeans.
Blue jeans were invented by a man named Levi Strauss. He decided to find a way to make denim wearable. And he invented that in the 1500s or 1600s, I believe.
Oh my gosh. Also, you see, guys, this is why you guys need to check out Steve's channel, because Steve is incredible. That is so cool.
Also, the cell phone.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
The cell phone was invented by a Jewish man. I believe his last name is Cooperman. I don't know exactly why, but he was one of the big recreators of the cell phone. But the current cell phone that we know today, the technology was developed by Israel.
That is really cool, man.
And there's so much Jewish culture in sports. I mean, when you mention Hank Greenberg, Sandy Koufax, Sean Green, Gabe Kapler, big Jewish basketball player, Jewish baseball players. The commissioner of basketball is a Jewish guy. Kerry Strug, the legendary Olympian who made that dismount on 1 foot in the 1996 Atlanta Games, a Jewish girl from Arizona.
But you see, these are stories that they need movies for. Like, I would love
I have been saying that the Magnificent Seven gymnastics team should have been picked up by Disney and turned into one of those great movies like Miracle or Remember the Titans, because that is a story that I would love to see in film.
I feel like that would be awesome.
And also, one of the things that not that many people do know is you go all the way back to the origins of comedy. You can go all the way back to medieval times and the court jesters. But the invention of the current way that we look at stand-up comedy, meaning a person in front of a brick wall just telling a joke, it was all created by all of these comedians that did their routines for Jewish crowds in the Catskills in the Borscht Belt. I will give you all the names of all of these people, and you may know half of these people. Sid Caesar, Freddie Roman, Mel Brooks, Carl Reiner.
Mel Brooks? Oh my gosh.
Let me see. Milton Berle.
Milton Berle? Oh my gosh.
These are all, and someone is mentioning Ben Stiller, his father, Jerry Stiller.
Actually, didn't know.
And look at today, Jerry Seinfeld, Gary Shandling.
Yeah.
This is a thing that has been Jackie Mason, who is one of my all-time favorite comedians, Alan King, Joan Rivers. These are all the pioneers of current comedy. And stand-up comedy created all of these things. I mean, don't get me wrong, you also had some others from other different backgrounds like Jackie Gleason and, Benny Hill. You had all these guys, but these classic styles of comedy were all created by all of these Jewish people. So the culture of Judaism goes beyond the faith. It really has turned into a lot of American culture.
Yeah, no, that's so incredibly true. And
that's the American dream. It's the melting pot. It's the melting pot.
No, exactly. And I'm going to quote April Marie because she's brilliant. And she says, there are so many fascinating stories out there. That's why it's so frustrating to see remakes and reboots.
Yeah.
And that's so true.
100%. Yes. Actually, I'm currently replying to that. I'm so tired of reboots and remakes. I just want that fresh content.
But I do still feel that as the older generations, we have a responsibility to show our younger generations the classic films. We need them. I mean, I will say one thing. This could be considered offensive to some, but I do feel that it is important, and I never understood why they did this. I really am upset over the fact that kids will never see Song of the South. That's such an important cultural thing that people need to see. It was a product of its time, because I said this when I actually found a copy of it and I watched it and I reviewed it. Now, I can totally understand where some people would say that this might be considered a racist film, and I'm not saying that it isn't. There are definitely some racial undertones in there, and some are very much blatantly in front of you for all the world to see. But when a child goes to Disneyland or Disney World and they go on Splash Mountain and they see Brer Bear, Brer Rabbit, Brer Fox, and they hear Zippity Doo-Dah or How Do You Do, there's going to be a point where generations are not going to be able to tell these kids where it came from.
No.
Some of these people have never seen Song of the South.
No, yeah, you're incredibly right. Sorry, Maddie, what were you going to say? Because I knew you were like...
I was going to point out what Leah List said in the comments about, like, I can't speak, of replying to April Marie's comment about production companies trying to, like, basically play the safe route.
Yeah.
And missing out on all this content and stories and all that. So I just wanted to point that out.
Oh yeah, no. She's incredibly right. And it's the same thing of like when you see MSNBC or like CNN where it's all about like, what's Donald Trump eating today? And like, like all this stuff. And instead of like actually missing some important stories, like the fact that on like all of the
cover up, I feel like from like actual important stories that need to be like talked about.
No, exactly. Like for instance, like on the western coast of Florida, like we have this really bad problem of like the water being like basically killing fish. Like it's so contaminated, and that's an important story. And that's just as important. Or when the whole thing with Flint happened and the contaminated pipelines.
Yeah,
like
those were still going on today. Yeah, there's still bottles of water being handed out. I live like near the area, so like I I seen all this, especially with my school, like even like doing some stuff on that. It's still going on today, but nobody ever talks about it anymore. So
no, yeah, but with that, we are actually going into our last question, and that actually, this is just perfect that we are talking about it in this way, because it kind of brings the conversation to this, like, you know, central fold, and that is, what do you guys think Hollywood and the publishing industry is going to look like in a few years, with everything that we've talked about and all the changes and innovative stories and movies that are coming out now? How do you guys think that it's going to look in the future?
You want to go first, Maddie?
I'm just thinking of something like super positive, like because of all the, especially for books I see on like YA Twitter, is like there's so many beautiful like stories like about to be published, or like ideas being like written out, and even books being published. It's just, for me, it's exciting to see that, especially even with films from this year. It's exciting and be really cool. I hope. Anyways.
I mean, I'm a little bit skeptical, but at the same time, I'm positive. I mean, the one thing that I don't want to see is I just don't want to see Hollywood making its basis of film creation by basically taking every old movie and turning it and just re-releasing it in a different shape or form. Like, I want people, what I would personally love is, I would love to see old movies re-released in theaters for limited times more often. And that used to happen with Disney classics. I used to be able to go to movie theaters and see old Disney animated films, and those were wonderful. But I feel that movies like Casablanca, 12 Angry Men, The Apartment, Gone with the Wind, I feel that there needs to be more exposure for this, because now we're living in a world where people don't want to go to see these movies. They want to see something that's new and something that's fresh. They want to go on Netflix. They want to go on Amazon Prime. Let me also say this. With the direction that streaming is going, it's going in a very bad direction, because there's going to be 50 streaming services. You're basically better off just buying cable, because it's just going to get so confusing. And also, too, the cloud is a lie. Don't believe the cloud. It'll crash. It'll get hacked. You'll lose all your material, and you'll have to buy it all again. But what I would really like is, I would just like to see, I just want to see good movies. Mm-hmm. That's all I want to see. I don't care who directs them. I don't care who's starring in them. I just want to see good movies. That's all that I want to see. And I would like to see something fresh, and I would like to see something new. I saw a movie this weekend that I know not that many people are going to see, but for me, I actually enjoyed it. And that was The Happy Time Murders. I watched a movie of puppets cursing at each other and having sex. And it was one of the funniest and freshest things that I ever saw. And the reason why I thought it was so great was because the innovation of how they actually put the movie together was so ingenious. As a huge Jim Henson fan, it was great to see his own son push the bar and give people who have seen this before something truly new and fresh, and say that just because they're puppets doesn't mean they're child friendly. It's one of the main reasons why whenever there is a movie that is animated and has an R rating, I want to see it, because I know that there's going to be something new and fresh. But I want to see bars being pushed. Like, I want to see more movies like Get Out. I want to see more movies like The Witch. I want to see more movies like Black Klansman. I want to see more movies like one that's coming out this year, which looks absolutely fantastic, Bohemian Rhapsody, which is a biopic about I can't wait about Queen. We need more music biopics. We really do. Where is the Michael Jackson movie already? Come on.
All right.
I completely agree. And to be honest with you guys, I do feel like, with all that being said, because the whole purpose of having this roundabout discussion is not only to promote small YouTubers like you guys and your incredible content and your incredible minds, but also to promote speaking about diversity diversely. But I think also, I think we're taking a step in the right direction. I think we have a lot of work to do. I think it's good to be critical, and I think it's good to question. But I think it's also, we should celebrate the amount of victory that we've made, that we don't have movies like 16 Candles that can just do a movie like that and people can just take it lying down. Like, there are people that are allies of people of color. There are people that will talk about how problematic it is and why it's problematic, and try to push for better content, push for better storytelling. And that's us taking a step in the right direction. That's what I think all of our visionaries wanted in the past. This is what, this is what Obama wanted. This is what Martin Luther King wanted. This is what Gandhi wanted. This is what Mother Teresa wanted. Like, all the best minds, they just wanted us to think better about each other. And that's what we are heading towards. And that is what I'm hoping that this series turns into. So with that, I'm going to end this video. I'm going to end this episode. I want to thank you guys so much for showing up. Maddie, Steve, you guys are amazing. Guys in the chat, you guys have been killing it with your comments and talking about positively about body image and sexuality and just all these different things, and it's incredible. I hope you guys come back to the series. If you guys are interested to be featured in a future episode of this series, please let me know by emailing me specifically or tweeting me by DM. And I would love to talk to you guys, and we can definitely spew ideas of future conversations that we can have to extend this conversation about diversity and talking about all these different social issues in regards to our current media. Guys, do you have any last words that you'd like to say before we sign off?
I just want to say thank you very much for having me. This was a really, really great conversation. But I also want to say thank you to everybody who was in the comments, because I really appreciated how accepting you guys were of what we had to say, even if you didn't agree with anything that some of us have said or everything that we said. That's fine. There's no reason why we can't agree to disagree. But I really appreciate the fact that you all came in today with an open mind. And I'll tell you this, Joanna's got something really special here. I'm so glad that she's doing this, because I'm doing something like this on my own channel, and I'm appreciating the fact that there's another person out there that's willing to speak her mind.
Thank you, Steve. That's so sweet.
You're very welcome.
Oh, Maddie, do you want to say anything?
I just want to say thank you for messaging that one day and asking if I wanted to be part of this. I was kind of afraid because, because the topics that you guys were discussing when we Skyped the first time, it's I don't really have a lot of experience or really much to say, but at the same time, I learned so much anyways from this. I still really want to thank you guys. And also, I've been distracted by this comment section the whole time, so I'm basically more in the comments than half here. My intervention was a bit.
I know. I'm going to get better at this. Again, I want to apologize for all the technical difficulties that happened with the first live show. I know that was crazy, but I guarantee you the next one will go hopefully without a hitch. I'm hoping. But I hope I can have you guys on my channel again, and we can have another discussion. And again, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next episode of Real Talk with Joe. Bye.